All right, we are live. Hello, everybody, and happy Thursday. Welcome to Masterclass. I know we normally host these on Fridays, but we're actually excited for a summer Thursday session, mixing things up. We're really excited to bring you today's session about finding your fit with our friends Susan and Kelley from Prepare to Launch You. Before we get into the session, just wanted to do some quick housekeeping. I'm Katie. I'm on the community team here at the Mom Project. For those of you who may be new to the Mom Project, we are a digital talent marketplace and community where you can realize your full potential. So through our jobs marketplace, we connect you with career opportunities at family-friendly companies that allow you to thrive at work and at home. And through our community, we provide you with the support, tools, connections, expert advice, that you need to keep moving forward in your career journey. So back to today's session, we are excited to welcome back our return to work experts, Susan and Kelley, as we explore a topic that's really foundational to any job search, figuring out your career path by getting clear on where you want to go. So we all know, particularly for those who might be making a return to the workforce after taking some time off, one of the biggest challenges is really determining where to look as you're kind of deciding where to go next in your path. But that's not so much about where to look in a job board. It's like, okay, where can I apply all of these great skills and experiences I have, and where's the best path forward there for you? So we're going to go through a bit of a content presentation in the beginning of the session, and then we're going to have a lot of time at the end for Q&A. So we have a ton of questions you guys submitted as part of your RSVPs that we'll get to, but also feel free to drop in questions in the chat as we go through today's session. And for those of you who may have to drop off early, fear not, we'll be sending an email after this session with recording, and then also a ton of great info from Susan and Kelley, including how you can get in touch with them. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to pass the mic to Susan and Kelley and kick things off. So thank you both again for being here. We so appreciate it.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Sylvia.
We love being back with you.
We sure do. So we're going to share our screen. We're going to dive right in so we can get the formal part of this presentation going. Oops, where'd it go? There we go. That didn't feel right. Let's try sharing the screen again.
Oh, there.
Are you seeing us?
Okay. Yep.
I'm just trying to thread the needle here. Here we go. All righty. So here we go. We're going to start right in.
Can you see that, Katie?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, good.
Great.
We want to get this part. This will just help us stay organized. So yes, welcome to Finding Your Fit After a Career Break. Kelley and I are really excited to be here today. This is our third or fourth. I think this is our fourth with you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to dive right in. For those of you who don't know us, we'll just tell you a little bit about us.
So we're both moms of four. I actually have a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a surprise, Harry, 1-year-old, that came in the last, in the pandemic year.
Our favorite office mate.
Yes, yes.
We've both taken career breaks and opted back in. And we found the best fit for ourselves by becoming entrepreneurs and starting our own practice, which is called Prepare to Launch You.
And we have a combined 30 years of experience helping women find fulfilling work after their time off caring for family. Just a little bit more about Prepare to Launch You.
Yeah, so we are an online learning company, but it's kind of online hybrid. And we have three major products, so to speak. One is a course for women returning to work after taking breaks or pivoting. Another is for women early in career who are looking to navigate their first maternity leave. That course is also on LinkedIn for people taking family leave. And really the studies are showing that it'll be very few US workers who won't at some point in their career take some type of leave.
Right.
And then we have other spot courses around that kind of synergy of work and life for women. So you're in good hands with us, and today we're here to help you.
Yeah.
So in this class, these are kind of the goals. We want to explain why fit is so important. I'm so glad you used the word foundational when you just teed this off, Katie, because for so many people, they do exactly what you said. They get their resume ready, they dive in. But if you don't have a clear idea of where you're going to go, you will never get there. It can feel like wasted time because it is thinking and writing and asking questions as opposed to that active doing of applying. But we promise you it'll work.
Yeah, and we also find that at this place is a place that many people get stuck because they don't know and they don't want to make a move until they absolutely know. And so the method that we're going to teach you today allows you to move even when you don't know exactly what the next career move is for you.
We're going to define what you need to know about yourself first before you can even start. And then we're going to teach you the strategy that we teach in our programs called Explore and Assess. And it's simple, it's manageable.
It is a structure because it does feel overwhelming. And if you have a structure and a strategy, that is going to make you more clear and successful.
And we're going to answer your questions. So your questions can be related to today's content. But some of the questions that were provided in advance were not, and that's fine. We'll get to those. If you have questions about any part of the continuum of work and life, and particularly returning to work, please save your questions to the end. We'll be happy to answer them. So what is career fit and why is it so important?
So a good career fit is one where you meet
the demands of the role, and the team.
And the team. And it's where the role and where the role and team meet your
this is often
needs.
This is often overlooked. I think we go into this with the mindset of, well, I just got to do whatever I need to get this job. But remember, this is a two-way conversation. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more. Candidates who know where they fit in have a much higher success rate, both in the job search and then once they're on the job. And poor fit is the number one reason someone is either fired or fails at the job or quits. So really a lot, kind of high stakes on this one. Oops. This is an important thing to understand. If you kind of look at it mathematically, the fit determines the audience, which determines the pitch. So you can have a really great pitch, but if you don't really know who you're pitching it to, it becomes the stop me when you hear something you like pitch. And nowadays, with everyone having a very short attention span, they're not going to listen long enough to hear something that they like, unless it's really targeted to them.
And especially if you're someone who has a gap, really being clear about who the audience is that you're speaking to and the skills and experience that you've gained during that gap time is then going to speak to that audience. So it's very important that you are clear about that.
And on the interviewing side, I've seen a lot of people come through my office that haven't done that step, and they lose me, right after hello. So there's some pre-work before you can dive in and start using the strategy we're going to teach. There are a couple of things you need to do first.
So before we teach you how to find your fit, you're going to need to know these particular things. What do I bring to the workplace? And start with your strengths and your skills and experience. And when we talk about skills and experience, we're not talking just about the college degree that you earned and the work that you did earlier on if you're someone who has a long gap. It's also that those skills and experience that you've gained during that gap time. What have you done in your communities? Many of you hold up our communities, and there is some really extensive, important work that you've done as a volunteer or services that you've provided on like a gig type experience for members of your family.
Or just new skills you picked up in the process too that you didn't even have before. The second piece is less commonly asked, and it's what do I need and want from my role? So I mentioned I kind of paid lip service to this on the last slide. An interview should be a conversation, not an interrogation. A job search is two ways. You have a product to sell, that's you, and they're looking for your help. But you also are looking for the right home, and they're providing you an option. And so not even thinking about what do I need out of this is selling yourself short. So we're going to skip a slide here and just take a page out of one of our workbooks. So you can take a screenshot of this or just write some of these things down. We call this the wheel of priorities.
Just so if you do have a journal or, a notebook or paper or whatever, you're going to want to have that out. We are going to provide you with some materials that Katie's going to send out later today. So you don't have to
but this one's not in there.
But this particular slide is not in there, and is an important piece. I'm gonna actually speak to that side of you that is that personal side of you. You have some priorities that are critical and important to your life and the life demands of your family that you are, helping and supporting at this juncture in your life. And you need to take a really good look at this particular wheel and rank those priorities. That becomes something that you are going to use as data to vet
your options.
Your options.
A really good example is, so we'll have single moms come through our course. And we'll have single moms that say, really what I want to do is I want to start my own company.
Right.
And that's great. We have a lot of people who leave our course and are starting their own companies. But we always come back to this. This is really early in the course. And if your number one priority is money and you need to provide benefits for your family now because you're a single parent, then maybe starting your own company is not the best idea right now. Maybe right now you need to find something that is going to provide income and security for your family. So these things kind of become part of your guide.
Right. And that's not to say that bigger, greater goal that you have for yourself is not possible. It is. It's just there is a short term and then there is a long term goal that you're looking at.
And we'll talk through that in a moment when we teach the strategy, because I think it's a good
Do we want
one.
to kind of just look at some of these things?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Susan just said, you may have
benefits.
an immediate money benefits. That is something that I need ASAP. And so that is going to trump everything. And so when you are vetting what the fit is for you now, you're going to be looking for that type of work. But, for some of you, it might be that you just need that social connection again, or you want some creative control and leadership and ownership. That might be what you're looking to fill. So just take a look, and really, we encourage you to take a screenshot of this.
Or write it down quickly.
Yeah.
And there may be something else. It's so funny. So I have 4 cars and lots of people home. So no car today. So I was going to ride my bike, but I wanted to be clean for you guys. So I called my neighbor, Casey, to drive me over. And she was just having this conversation. She said, I see you guys are doing this workshop today. I read it online. She said, I think I need to come, because she was a very high level senior development director at a very large nonprofit, and she ran all their big events and did the wooing of donors. And she said, I don't really want to do that anymore. I can. She said, I just want a job where I can go and just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And so she's at a different point in her life where money is not as important. Her husband's close to retirement, but for her, it's connection. It's using her brain.
Yeah.
But she said, I don't need to run it anymore.
Yeah.
What a great employee she would be.
She wants flexibility,
I
bet,
Yeah.
So you really want to get clear about your top 3. That's what's most important as we move through this process that we're going to teach you, to really be very aware of what your top 3 priorities are right now at this juncture in your life.
So we're going to hop back to the prior slide. And then the third piece of what you have to know first is, what are the 3 different roles or organizations or industries that interest me now?
Right.
And particularly for those of you who've taken a break, maybe even a longer break, don't assume that the job that you had from 22 to 30 when you had your kids is necessarily the job that you should or perhaps even want to return to.
Casey's a great example of that. She's thinking, gosh, that might be something that I will go back and explore, but I'm not 100% that's work I want to do. And what other work, and why we say the number 3, you could have 5, but this is a place where people do feel very overwhelmed. They're like, gosh, I could do everything. There's a million things I could do. There's a million directions I could go in. That feels overwhelming. If you take some time to just reflect and really think about, what are 3 that are 3 different buckets that I can move through Kelley and Susan's process, which is coming up, I promise you. What are 3 different avenues that I might go down? And so you can think about that avenue as a role. You can think about it as an organization maybe you want to work for, or an industry that you want
to work for. One of our favorite examples from way back when was lawyer.
Yeah.
Own a bakery. What was the third one? I forget what the third one was, but it was all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
But it was great, because she took the time to really figure out which one was going to meet all of her needs and which one she met.
Yeah, more commonly, it's almost like there's a progression, right? It's maybe I want to be in HR.
Right.
And then, but HR in the corporate sense, HR in nonprofit.
Right. Or maybe I hang a shingle and I'm a consultant.
Exactly.
I would say somewhere between the 2 is where most people fall. Not 3 completely disparate things.
But some people do.
Yeah, that's right. Which was always kind of fun to see where they end up. Yeah. Okay. So the best method for finding your fit, if you know who you are, which is your brand. You know your strengths and skills and experiences. You know what you want and need, which is those priorities. Then you're ready to do what we call exploring and assessing your options.
So that is the method that we're going to teach you today.
Mhm.
It's the explore and assess method. It's something that is tried and true. We use this all the time. We use it with our private clients. We use it with our students. And it is such a great way to put structure around deciding what it is that fits you best. So,
and then creating the resume, the LinkedIn profile, the pitch that's directed to the audience, the proper audience, which is really important.
Right.
So the first step in exploring and assessing is to gather your resources. And these are really easy resources to have. One is technology.
Right.
Your phone, your laptop, your tablet, because you're going to need access to some digital tools like Google, like the different job boards. And, you know, one thing to consider in your area, job boards are somewhat regional in certain areas. I mean, Indeed is everywhere, but many different geographies and different types of industries kind of align with different job boards. You are not using job boards to apply. You're using job boards to get information.
So stop and hear that. This particular tool, the job board
And
tool,
it's just a tool.
in this method that we're teaching you is just a tool. It's not you looking to apply for a position. It's so that you can gather some information as you're exploring.
So you're looking for words. So here's a classic example. If you left the workplace in 2002, the tech department was called the Management Information Systems, MIS. Now it's called IT. If you left the workplace and you were doing marketing, well, digital marketing wasn't even part of it until about 10 years ago. So sometimes it can build your confidence to look online and just look at what kind of language are they using? What kinds of jobs are they filling? What types of skills are they looking for? Again, just gaining information. Another great source of information is company websites. Just looking at their websites and seeing the types of the language they use to describe their employees, the language they use on their own job descriptions, learning a little bit more about the industry from just the stories that they tell on their blogs. And then Google, I mean, you can Google anything. All right.
Anything. So you might be on a job board, you might see a title of a position, and then you might just Google that position and get more information about what that actually
But
entails.
you're really trying to hold back from taking a dive and saying, oh my God, I've got to apply to this job.
Yes.
Because you're really just trying to get information. If you are already on LinkedIn, you can use LinkedIn as a treasure trove of information. You can just type in a job title and see what pops up. You can go to a company's site or a LinkedIn page of a company and take a look at who's working there and what job titles they have. You can then click on those people and find out what backgrounds they have. What's important though, and we see this happen a lot, it's really easy to get stuck in step one here of this technology.
Right. It's a rabbit hole. And then you start feeling like, oh, I should have done this, or maybe I should have gone back and done, and now I'm going to need this degree. Slow yourself down and just be in the place of curiosity. You are just
you're taking notes, you're getting information
yourself. You are just educating
and
yourself.
making sure that you move on to this next step,
Because,
which is going to be the human piece of it. Because
yes.
you'll get more information and better information from a human.
And it's so important to do this, especially when you are trying to figure out what it is that you want to do next. Having conversations with anybody who's in your orbit is really important. It's going to allow you to process through and get to a place of clarity. And so the human connection, I can't say enough about.
So you're going to look at your contact list, family, friends, acquaintances, former colleagues are a great source, former clients as well. And you're going to need a journal. So we just use like a notebook, take your notes.
This is like mine. It's look at with all my
It's a Bible.
Yeah.
And a spreadsheet to track your activity. And for those of you who don't know how to use Excel, this is a great opportunity, very low stakes because you're only doing it for yourself, to create your first spreadsheet. If you don't know how to do it and you have a 12-year-old or up, ask them. If not, ask your spouse, ask your sister, ask your neighbor, and just get familiar with using the tool. So this is part of that process, particularly for those of you who might have taken a longer break.
And that's going to grow your confidence. It's going to make you feel like, okay, this is something that absolutely, I can handle, but you're doing it in that low stakes way. And that's a great way to slowly build back your confidence for sure.
So step one is gather your resources. Step two is explore.
Right.
So you're going to use those resources and you're going to reach out.
I just want to say this because I know there's probably people out there feverishly taking notes. We are going to give you Katie's going to send this out to you. We're actually going to give you this PDF, and it has the resource section slide, and then we actually have an even more in-depth explore section, and then the assess piece of it is also on here too. So just so that you're not going crazy and you can just listen to us, just know you're going to get that if you have this follow-up.
Glad you said that. So you're going to reach out to your contacts via phone, email, or LinkedIn message. We only recommend that you use LinkedIn messaging if you have a really good LinkedIn page. And if you're not sure if you do, you probably don't, would be probably my guess. So stick with, because you don't want to drive a lot of activity to your page if you're still exploring and assessing, and your page doesn't really speak to an audience. Never text. Really never text. I would say even for close friends, for something like this, pick up the phone. Make it more of a conversation. And you're going to request a meeting. So the second thing that you'll get in the email from the Mom Project is another template with a really simple script. I'll just show it to you because it's here.
You have to escape, I think.
No, here it is.
Okay.
So there are 4 steps: the greeting, the context, the invitation, and the soft close and the thank you. We just put together a fake option, but option 1. Hi, Keith. I hope this message finds you and your crew well. What a great choir concert last week. So this is Keith, someone that we met when our kids sing in chorus together. Context. I'm currently exploring some new career options, and I'm really curious about his job, his industry, his company, whatever it is that interests you about him. That's the context. Number 3, invitation. Would you be free for a 10-minute phone call, or if you want to do video call, or if you're comfortable meeting for coffee, to answer some questions I have about you and your career, company, organization, field, whatever. And then soft close. Afternoons are generally better for me. So if you can suggest a few times, I'll make sure I make it work. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Okay, really easy. I'm going to say this again at the end. We really want you to hear this. The majority of people that you reach out to using this little simple step have done the same thing. 80+% of people in the US found their job through some type of networking, not by applying online. Katie will tell you this as well. The Mom Project has awesome jobs, but it's a very small percentage of people who are getting their jobs there, because there's so many more people looking for jobs than there are jobs. So you have to supplement by doing this on your own. And when you know the math, when you know that over 80% of people in the US have found their job that way, it gives you the power to this process. But it also tells you that when I reach out to Kelley Skupiak to ask her after the choir concert if I can talk to her, she's going to know how I feel, because she's done it too. The majority of people will meet with you, will talk with you.
And we're going to take you even further off the hook right here with this. You are actually not asking this person for a job. You are just exploring their industry or their company or roles that they might know about. You are just educating yourself. So it is not this is maybe a seed. It becomes a connection of what will maybe later on down the road become someone who you network with for a job. But at this juncture and at this place, all that it is you are just gathering data. You are getting information, and you are educating yourself about this particular bucket or avenue that you want to understand. Is this going to be a fit for me? Is it going to be a fit for the work I want to be doing? Is this the audience that I want to be speaking to? That's all you're doing here. So you can just even take yourself further off the hook for just that you know, true like networking for a job. You're
basically asking people to talk about themselves, which they really like to do.
People love to talk about themselves.
So you're going to meet with them live or virtual. You're going to ask them questions about what they do and where and how they do it. So in that page that Kelley showed you, there's a question bank with about 20 questions you can ask. You're not going to ask every one.
Right.
You're going to look through the bank and say, which one makes sense to ask this person?
So it'd be great if we just threw a couple out there.
Sure.
Yeah. So super simple. Can you tell me about your career path and what led you here? Great opener, just to get the conversation going. And this is really important. And Susan and I have definitely gotten a lot of feedback over the years when we do this with our students. We send them out to do this explore and assess phase. People are busy and they don't want to hear, I want to pick your brain. That feels overwhelming to them. And if you can come with some specific questions for them, I have 3 really important questions I want to get answered today. Something as simple as that, they're like, okay, I can answer 3 questions.
And if you ask for 10 minutes of their time, you keep it to 10 minutes.
Yes.
If the conversation is going longer, you say, you know what, Katie, I asked you for 10 minutes. It's already been 10 minutes. I've loved this conversation. I would love to continue it. If you have time right now, we could do it now or at another time, but I want to respect your time because I only asked for 10 minutes. Like really honoring that and making sure that you're prepared. And this, again, takes you off the hook because we have all the questions written down
Yeah,
for you.
I love this one. What personal traits are best suited to this job, organization, or industry? That's a great question to ask.
There's a couple good ones at the bottom.
Can we stay in touch and continue the job?
Yeah, that's a really important one. But what 2 to 3 things can I do to improve my chances of being accepted into this industry or getting a role like yours or being invited into your company?
Right. And
so,
sorry. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow you to assess out the gap that you have between
what they need. Yeah.
Yes. And that's an important thing. So that is going to help you determine, do I need to go back to school and get some degree, or is there a micro degree that I need to get? Is there some training that I need to get?
Whoops, there we are. We're on assess right now.
Okay.
She's already there. That's great. So you're going to go. Want to hold that up?
Yeah.
So you'll see this third column. These are the assess questions, about a dozen questions you're going to ask yourself. So now I've met with Katie. I've got my notebook. I'm home. Now I'm looking at all these things that Katie said, and I'm saying to myself, okay, how good a fit is this? First of all, am I even interested? And now that Katie's told me about this job, do I even like it? Because let me tell you, we hear this a lot. People think something looks so sexy and awesome. And then they go and they realize what it is and they're like, ugh, I don't want to do that all day. So you're using your own criteria.
Right.
Like what interests me? What even sounds like it's something I'd like to do?
Right. And also you are using that pre-work. Those priorities trump everything. So go back to those priorities. If you have a financial imperative, that right now at this juncture is going to trump. It doesn't mean that you can't do work that you enjoy, but it does mean that you are looking for, if you need benefits, you probably are looking for full-time work with benefits.
Right,
with benefits.
exactly.
Yeah. So don't forget to check those priorities against this data that you've gathered.
One thing that's interesting when we talk about assessing is one of the things you're trying to look at, what you said earlier, like what's the gap between what they need and what I have. When women apply for jobs, they will only apply for a job where they meet 90% of the posted criteria. So a woman who's doing this process might logically walk home and say, well, I could never do this because I don't even do, 3/4 of what they want.
Right.
Men, on the other hand, if they meet 45% of the criteria, will apply. Somewhere in between is probably, we like seeing 60% or so. If you meet 60% of what this person is telling you need for that job, then it's something that belongs on your list. Then you're close enough. Okay. So you're going to track next steps, because after you've made this connection with this person, the last question is, can I stay in touch with you as I continue my job search? So I always find it when Kelley and I get requests like this a lot, I like hearing that where the person ends up,
right?
Even if it's not where I am or has anything to do with any of the connections that they got from me, I like knowing that the person has succeeded. So at the very least, you're going to keep this person's information handy on a spreadsheet, or if you really don't want to use a spreadsheet, in your notebook, so that you can reach out to him or her later and say, you know what, Jennifer, I just wanted to thank you. This journey led me here. And that conversation I had with you was really part of what led me here. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually have a story about that. And there was a question in the pre-questions that Katie had sent to us.
About mentorship.
About mentorship. And, how do you get a mentor if, you've been out of the industry or it's not an industry that you are, it's a new industry that you're pivoting to. And I think a couple of things. Number one, we have to start thinking about mentors in a different way. Mentors can actually be a one-day conversation. It could be an hour of their time, or even 15 minutes of their time, where they're sharing a bit of wisdom with you. That happened to me when I decided I was making a pivot from education to this coaching, or I was thinking, do I want to be a therapist? What is my next steps? And I met with a woman. I found her, I hunted her down actually on the internet. She was going through a program at University of Pennsylvania that I was very interested in. And I heard her speaking on their admissions intake. And I hunted her down and I found her and I sent her an email. And she said, you know what, actually, Kelley, I have time to talk with you tomorrow on my ride home after I drop my son off at college. And I spoke to her for 1 hour on the phone on her ride home. It was the most pivotal conversation that I had in what my next career steps were going to be. I've never met her, but she was a mentor for me for that 1 hour. So know that this exploring and assessing can give you access to mentors. And then you might build a relationship from that. You might go on to cultivate that relationship so that they are kind of staying with you and you are checking in with them. But it's a great low stakes way to make connection with people that are doing work in an industry or a company that you're interested in, and start to build a mentor relationship with them.
Well, the other thing that happens, I'm glad you said that too, because often when we're in this point in our program, a student will say, I had this great explore and assess meeting, and now they want me to interview for this job.
Okay, yes.
So what we want to say is that if you're still exploring and assessing, you're not ready. There's nothing wrong with saying, thank you so much for thinking of me, Kelley. And in a few weeks, I'll be ready. But right now, I'm in the process of really becoming clear on what my next steps are. So I'm so happy that you think I'd be a good asset to your team. If you can give me a few weeks, just to get through the rest of this course, then I'll be ready to talk to you.
Right.
But that moment that you're meeting with them is very decidedly not about a job.
Right.
And that's part of honoring what you said. I just want to ask you some questions about what you do.
Right. So that explore phase opens you up to many, many mentors. And then you may cultivate a deeper relationship with someone who carries you through over time. Okay.
So we're going to give you a few examples. We have 4 kind of avatars we're going to talk about, but we're just going to wrap up with some final thoughts. You've got to know who your audience is if you're going to be successful. I have been interviewing for more than 2 decades. Nothing is more bothersome to me or feels like more of a waste of time than when somebody comes and they're all over the place and I don't even know what they really can do. They're just trying to stop me when I hear something they like. Job searching, especially after a career break. If you've taken a career break, let's say you've taken 10 years, why would you want to try to get a job in 10 days?
Right.
You've already taken 10 years off. Take the time to do it right.
Right. And I want to say this to pivoters as well, because I know there's many of you out there that are in that pivoting place. Same. You need to give yourself the grace and the time to think through this and use this method, use this process. It will keep you organized. Choose your avenues. Then from that, do the assessing in those avenues. Then go back and do the exploring in those avenues, and then go back and do the assessing against it. And you will cultivate an understanding and the clarity that you want to determine.
It usually kind of presents itself pretty clearly, right? Even if you have, like you mentioned earlier, an urgent need for money, you can get the job now to provide that, but continue still to explore, assess, and develop yourself for that job you really want.
And this is the other thing. You can take a job and that can be exploring and assessing.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
So we tell that to our clients, to our students all the time. It's sometimes you take a job and it's about even just really figuring out and exploring, assessing, does this work for my family? Is
Am
this
I ready?
a fit for my family? Is this something that makes sense for my family? Am I ready for this? Is our family at the place that I thought it was in order for me to start to take on this much work and at this capacity? So you can still be in that explore and assess phase, even if you have a job.
And then lastly, what we mentioned earlier, virtually everyone you reach out to has reached out to someone to get their job. So don't be shy. Don't feel like you're not worthy. As long as you don't waste their time, make a clear and specific ask and honor whatever time you asked for. It's going to be a good meeting.
And getting yourself back out there, it just feels good. It feels good to connect with people and talk with people. That is, if you're not feeling like your confident self, this is going to help you grow that confidence back. Definitely.
And everyone you see, we've had more stories of students finding jobs on the sidelines at a kid's game. Everyone you see should know that you're looking for work. Don't be shy about that. Okay, so we want to give you we picked 4 students and we can stop. Well, should we keep this up so they have our contact info?
Sure.
Okay. So 4 students that we want to tell you about. The first one is Kristen. Kristen was
this is kind of just to give you the lay of the land of how the explore and assess phase works. So you have a model for, so this is how you can sort of create that structure in your brain of how it works. So go ahead. Sorry.
So no, that's good.
The teacher in me had to lay that
Kristen
out.
was one of our military spouses. We do a program for military spouses. So if any of you are military spouses, please check out fourblock.org, FOURBLOCK. They are a veteran career readiness program, But with us now, they have a military spouse readiness, career readiness program. It's great. So Kristen was like a 20-year military spouse. She had worked in business, B2B, chemical sales in her prior career, but as a mil spouse, she'd moved around a lot. So for the last 14 years, I think it was, she was a stay-at-home mom, moving every 2 years, and she just had a very portable career in fitness and wellness as an instructor and a coach. So her first lane, she chose 3 kind of buckets to look at. The first one was staying in the wellness and fitness industry, but becoming more on the inside, on the corporate side. Number 2 was going back into professional B2B sales. And number 3, which is really what she was leaning at, and she was late 40s, close to 50, was to go back to school to become an orthopedic surgeon. That was what she really wanted to do.
Right.
So she dove deep, right?
Yeah.
She met with people in the wellness industry. She met with other companies that were doing B2B sales. She even had a couple of offers. She went and interviewed orthopedic surgeons, orthopedic PAs, and APRNs. And where is she now? Kristen now kind of combined her lanes.
Yeah, really interesting.
She's working for a company, a prosthetic company that also makes knee replacements. So she is selling the knee replacements to hospitals. And then she's in the operating room with the doctors, training them on the proper installation technique for those units, for those devices.
Right. So do you see how just doing that exploring and assessing got her to get an understanding of what she was going to target, go after, and then she knew the audience to which she was going to speak. Great. Okay.
I'm going to stop the share because I would look at.
Yes,
the second one is Tina. Oh, we love Tina. Tina's from Seattle. Kristen was from one of the Carolinas, I think. Tina took a 22-year break to raise her 2 daughters. And she had kind of interesting experience. She had been a legal assistant. She'd also had 10 years of owning an aesthetic salon where it was makeup, hair, I think kind of full service aesthetics that she owned. During her career break, she also worked as a docent at an art museum in San Francisco. Then she moved to Seattle and she worked kind of helping her husband with the software company with marketing. And so her 3 buckets, the first one was looking at the aesthetics business.
Going back into that.
And because there were a lot of changes. Now there's so many things that an aesthetics practice can offer that weren't really offered 15, 20 years ago. She was looking at working in donor relations within an arts nonprofit, using kind of her docent experience at a museum. And then she also was looking at the legal field because she kind of liked that work that she had as a legal assistant. So where is she now? Number 3 was the winner. She really liked the energy when she was going and exploring, assessing law firm work. But she knew she wanted something more than being kind of glorified secretary and less than being a lawyer. So she, I think she just completed her certificate in paralegal. And the last time we checked in with her was probably April. And she had a couple of offers already as a paralegal.
So Tina's an example of you can go through this explore and assess phase and realize that it's not a job that you're going to get right now. You're going to go back to school and get some education, but we are strong advocates of vetting that because it's an expensive measure once you go down that road. So we don't want you to just think that. And also we find sometimes school can be a place to hide because you're nervous to get yourself back out there again. So you really need to use this explore and assess method to vet, is this something that I'm ready to take my family's money and invest it in?
Such a good point. We've definitely seen that happen a lot. I'm going to go take this, I'm going to go take that, I'm going to go take this, and never land anywhere. Our next example is Heather. Heather had taken an 18-year break to raise her 3 kids. She had interesting, really, she already pivoted. She started out in marketing. Then she went into education. She got certified as a teacher in Connecticut. She's from Connecticut. She became a K through 12 public school educator. And then during her break, her oldest child is autistic. And she became kind of a full-time advocate for him within her public school system, making sure that the needs that he had were being properly met.
She, in those 18 years, she did so much work in understanding what the process is for these parents and how to, navigate the process, which can be really, really overwhelming.
So one of her lanes was actually to start a practice as a family advocate for children of special learning needs. Her other one was to go back into marketing, but with kind of an education focus. And then her third bucket was to go back and teach. So she dove deep and she looked at all of the different options and she looked at her priorities. She knew what she wanted to get out of her work. And Heather has just completed a certificate program to become a legal, it's not a lawyer degree, but it's within the legal realm, a certificate to be an advocate, a public school advocate for families. Right. And she's going to be hanging a shingle in the fall. She's starting in August and she's launching.
Yeah.
And then our last example is Amy. Amy took a 6-year career break. Amy's from Pittsburgh. She had worked 8 years as an auditor at one of the big 4 firms. I forget which one. And during her break, she became a commercial real estate owner with her husband. So they bought a commercial building. She took on all the finances. So she wasn't auditing anymore. She was doing the accounting. She was doing the investment. She was doing the resource management, kind of project management as well. And she really liked it. She really liked managing the finances in a different way, not just auditing them. So when she was looking at what her 3 options would be, one was returning to her old firm as an auditor because they would have taken her back. So as we mentioned earlier, going back to old colleagues is a great place to start because often they remember how great you were. You could be gone for 20 years. I promise you, they still remember. And they can very well say, come on back in. And that was happening for her. She also considered just taking a deep dive into real estate, maybe buying or property managing for someone else. And then once they had enough money coming in, buying a second property and making that her full-time job. And then her third option was to pivot from audit into public accounting. So she was looking at some large public accounting firms and could she do that? Because she really knew in her heart that audit probably wasn't, it was a safe place to go and an easy place to go, but probably not what she wanted to do. So she did something interesting. She did choose the third option, which was to pivot into accounting. She was a CPA, so she had the degree. She just hadn't used it in that way. But she chose a firm that has a large real estate practice. So her plan is to make some relationships there because what she took was a 1-year contract. So when Kelley said, sometimes when you take a job, you're exploring and assessing, that's what she's doing. She said, both for the reasons that you said, too. One is she's 2 young kids. Is my family ready for me to be gone 35 hours a week? She's working slightly part-time. Is public accounting really where I want to be? And if so, how can I get into this department where I think I'm going to be even more excited to work? All right.
So that just gives you some models of, and we thought it would just be great to give you some examples, but we'd love to open it up to questions, Katie. I don't know if
and we have 20 minutes at least for your questions.
And we have
for sure. I mean, well, first of all, everybody's like really excited about all the content, and just to answer that question that keeps popping up, there will be a recording of this that will come out afterwards and links to get some of the PDFs mentioned. So yes, like all this good stuff is coming your way. But yeah, I mean, yes, there's just so much. And I feel like this framework you laid out is just super powerful. But like,
one of the big questions that we had on what you had given us before is this concept of transferable skills. Like how do I, like one of the questions is how do I identify transferable skills that when you're going and talking to people. So we have given out something called our Gap Buster Guide a number of times when we've spoken to the Mom Project, and we weren't going to give it out today. And then we got these questions and we were like, gosh, that is the tool where it allows you, it kind of takes you through the process of looking at all of your skills and experience that you have gained over the years, and then how to translate that into
language that makes more sense to an employer.
Right.
So probably the best thing for them to do, if you are one of those people, is to watch the Mom Project video that we did, or the recording, the webinar that we did, because I think that document will have even more power if you've listened to us explain how it works. This is particularly valuable for people who have a lot of volunteer experience. It's also valuable because this does happen sometimes. We have students who go through the program and they realize when they do all the exploring, assessing, and the sitting down and really looking at their life, they realize, you know what, I need another year at home. And if you're one of those people, this guide also has a secondary application, which is to look at how can you maximize your volunteer hours now? What can you say yes to that will serve you? What can you say no to that is not going to be of any value to an employer?
Right.
So you'll get that in the email. We'll put that in there.
So Katie, do you want to feed us some questions?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting, you know, how you kind of talked about all those different personas and right, they boiled everything down to kind of these 3 potential ideas. But
Yeah.
what advice do you have for those? And I guess this is sort of a good problem, but like they're kind of overwhelmed because they have a lot of interest and like feel like there's a lot out there for them. I mean, I know you kind of talked about some of the framework, but anything else you might want to layer on top of that in terms of really.
I think I just want to
Yeah,
say this
go.
first. So I think spending some time defining who you are now is really time well spent, because what happens when we are so focused on our children and our communities and all of that for a number of years, we are in an extremely defined role, but we haven't stopped and really thought about the vision for ourselves. And spending some time really looking at what are my strengths, what are my what are my skills and experience in this time, and also what do I value, what matters most to me, I think is another thing to look at, and just get a clearer picture of just who you are, both professionally and personally. That's because when you know who you are, that allows you to start making choices and decisions for yourself and not feeling so scattered and all over the place. This system will help you because it's a structure that allows you to take all of that and then just put it into lanes. And if you even just write down, so say you have 10 different things that you want to look at, start to look at, okay, so if those are my 10 things or those are my 20 things, well, like what kind of sounds similar? What's a lane that I could, put that in that, actually those things all kind of could fall under the same umbrella.
And the reason that matters, the reason that matters is that if let's say this woman has 15 different things she's looking at, and I'll use HR as an example, and one of them might be HR consulting, one of them might be being an in-house employee relations person for a really big organization, another might be being an HR auditor for a nonprofit, whatever the different options are, they're all related to your experience as a human resources professional. The tools that you will create to pitch yourself to the world are going to be the same.
Yes.
If I'm highlighting my HR expertise, whether it's for in-house, agency, consulting, or private practice, it's going to look the same.
Right.
So where you really come into trouble is when you're looking at things that are completely disparate, like I want to be a lawyer and I want to open a bakery.
Right.
Okay. Because then the tools are going to look different.
Yes.
I would also say spend some time before you are talking to people, really spending a little time on those online and those digital tools to say, what can I really do? What's realistic for me to do? Because I think both of us, and probably me in particular, I really am a mile wide and an inch deep, but I know that there are things that I might like to do, but I really am not prepared or equipped to do them right now. They might be in my head.
Right.
But we also want to look at what is the process capability? Is this really realistic?
Yes.
And so a lot of this is what you said earlier. It's that writing things down, asking the people closest to you, do you think I could do this?
Yeah.
And then vetting it through your research.
Right.
But if you end up having 6 different buckets to look at, that's fine.
That's fine.
It's just going to take you a little longer.
And do not be scared to take on work and call that exploring and assessing. Trying it on.
Projects are great.
Yes.
Letting people in your network know, you want some extra help, I'm available.
Yes, absolutely. That allows you to get the full experience of how does this work for my family? How does this work for me? How does it, work for the employer that I'm working for? All of those things. So you can still be exploring, assessing. I know we're going to say it, we're going to beat it to death, but exploring and assessing can still be a part of taking a job.
It could also be part of taking a returnship or an internship.
Yeah.
Now, Mom Project has some returnships on their platform, which is great. iRelaunch kind of specializes in that area. I think Opera is getting into that too. The returnships, the formal returnships programs tend to be focused on people who have worked within that industry. In some cases, the companies really prefer you to have worked at that company and then taken a gap and then returned to that company. In most cases, they tend to be pretty skill specific. And they tend to favor people who have shorter breaks. But that doesn't mean you cannot create a returnship. We have plenty of students who do. All it means is when you're talking to someone after you've explored and assessed and you've picked your lane and you're networking, you could say to someone, one of the things I'm considering, because I know I've been out for a while and it would help me build my confidence, particularly in the technology, for example. would be an internship or returnship, where I would come and work for you for 4 months at a lower rate, during which time I'd have a mentor and I'd be learning. And in the department that I'd like to work. It's a low cost way for you to test me out. It's a safe way for me to test myself out. And then at the end of the 4 months, we determine where it goes. You do not have to have a company finding a returnship for you.
Right.
You can propose one yourself.
But that's also when you are exploring and assessing and you're in that phase and you are talking with someone, you can ask
That's
them.
right. It's one of the questions I think in the
Do
bank.
you have
Right.
internships or returnship programs? And you know, maybe they can put you in touch with someone so you can get educated about that and how that's happening in that company.
Great point.
Yeah, that's all. And I will just say, yes, we definitely partner with companies on returnship programs. They're all a little different. You know, some are very skill specific. Others are pretty much wide open, and there's a bit of training as part of it. So
Great.
That's great.
definitely check it out. It's all in our jobs marketplace. But yeah, so this is kind of interesting. I know we were kind of talking about somebody who's kind of paralyzed with like too many directions. A question came in the chat where it was like, well, what if I only have working experience in one field? Like if they're feeling maybe more limited, but they know there's something else. Any other, I think maybe it's the journaling and kind of really exploring deep down. Other advice there?
Yeah, but also it's really important to look at, I don't know if this woman is a returner, but there are other things that you do and that you have done that have value. I mean, one of our favorite stories is Julynn. We had a student who had been a homeschool parent for 20 years,
Almost
I think.
20 years, yeah.
She had two special needs sons. And so she made the decision. She had been a very high level executive assistant, C-suite executive assistant. So big job, pretty much chief of staff for a senior executive. And she had been home for, as we said, 20 years. She waited until the second one got into college. She did a great job. She's like, what the heck am I going to write on my resume? All I've ever done is homeschooling. And I don't want them to think, that I'm sitting at home in a jumper. That was her line.
So it's like, it's looking at it with a different lens on.
So we looked at we worked with her. She was one of the examples that we used in that particular cohort. We looked at the work that she did as an advocate. So she helped write legislation in her state of South Carolina, I think, that approved homeschooling, the pedagogy of homeschooling for standardized testing. She organized all kinds of events, brought in speakers. She was an advocate. She was an event planner. She did tons of curriculum writing. And so I don't think on her resume, she said, I homeschooled my sons. It was, these are the things that I did: advocacy, I did curriculum development, and I did event planning and hosting. And she actually had 3 job offers within 2 months of graduating. She turned down 2 and she took the 3rd. She is now working as a very senior executive, very senior executive, the number 3 person at a very large aerospace company. And interestingly, she got the job because the husband of one of our other students worked at this company, and he put her in touch with the C-suite exec. So it was kind of cool.
The other thing I would say to this person too is take a look at your priorities. And if going back to something right now is a necessity because of a financial imperative, then you would probably go back to that and get that income stream going. But that does not mean that you still can't do the exploring and assessing and deciding what is my next big thing, and having that bigger vision for yourself. We are huge advocates for women creating their own vision for their own life. You do a fantastic job for everyone else in your orbit. So doing it for yourself is,
I have one more idea too on this.
For sure.
Wait, one more idea on this though. When I spoke at the Watermark, remember I told you there were a bunch of tech women that came to talk to me afterwards. There was one young woman who came and talked to me, and she had, what she did, which is a great strategy, was she made sure that she advocated for herself. She was an engineer and she wanted to not be in engineering anymore. And she was, she'd worked her way up. And so she and I were talking. I said, what you need to do is let your manager know. A good manager should always be asking you, what's next for you, Katie? What's next for you, Jennifer? And if they're not, then you tell them, this is what I'm looking at. So if you're not currently in a job, that's hard to do, but you can take a job in that lane where you're very secure. And you can say to your manager at your first review, or maybe the first month on the job, I've taken this job because this is what I do really well, but I'm very interested in pivoting from finance over to investments. I want to go from analysis into investing, or I want to go from HR into marketing, whatever it is. What do I need to do that? Because once you're in an organization and they've invested money in you and they already know that you're come to work, you're educated, you're not an axe murderer, whatever. We don't know. When we bring people into an organization, we know very little about them. Now you're in. Now they know that you're a valuable asset. They're going to want to keep you. And they will work. I'm working with Olivia, my private client right now. That's exactly what she's doing. How can I move into another area? Because sometimes you're thinking that I need to change industries or I need to change companies when you just need to change departments. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's a very solid point. And I, we've talked about this, like, yeah, your job, you might need like a right now job to kind of get you to the next place, but like, that's also, you're still learning and you have something fresh and new on your resume. And, you could also learn about things you like and maybe things like, okay, I actually want to continue to maybe move away from something. Yeah. So it's all good experience. Any experience really is good experience because you leave with something. A question just came in the chat, more particularly kind of targeted to like working with you guys. So every industry I've ended up in has just been due to applying for the job without caring about the industry. Does taking your course or engaging with you both help narrow down those industries and areas?
Yeah, we do an exercise at the beginning of the second module where it's just really looking at industry specific things to take. So just taking an easy example like finance, you might be a financial professional, but you're really interested in healthcare. And you can still be a financial professional in healthcare and be part of that mission of delivering great care, but using the tools and skills that you have. So we do a short lesson on really looking at industry, and sometimes the lanes, those three areas that we were talking about, are just three different industries, but the same skill set.
Right.
But the reason it's important to identify that industry is that the language that I use, if I'm a financial analyst, when I'm applying to a tech company versus a nonprofit versus an investment house, is going to be very different.
Right.
So that's part of that process, is really learning what is the language that's going to resonate with that person I want to hire me.
Right.
So we do spend some time on that for sure.
Definitely.
Awesome. I see a question just came in, and this is kind of broader, but I think interesting. So, advice for managing emotions when other life circumstances are changing at the same time as trying to make a reentry. Any thoughts you have?
Oh, that's we love doing that. So in our course, there are always tears at some point.
Always.
One of the things,
and we always say this, and so
I
always say this.
Kelley's line.
Tears mean something is important to you,
mm-hmm.
and going through this return to work process and we wholeheartily believe this. This is not just something that we make up. It transforms your life, and it is something that you have to own those, those emotions, and sometimes there's cleaning out that needs to happen as you move through this process.
But we will never let you leave the course.
No.
Where you are going to cry in an interview.
Never.
So we will work through those things.
Never.
So for instance, we had one student who we loved. She was from the Bay Area, and she had lost a child during her break, which she had taken her break to nurse a child who ended up dying. And so we practiced with her answering that question and being able to do it. So we do a lot of scripting in our course, a lot of very specific scripting per student, because scripting will give you the confidence to deliver things without those little hiccups.
Right.
And be able to say without crying that, well, during that time I was caring for a child who ended up passing away actually, and I took some time to make sure that my other children were in a good place, and now I want to take all that I learned about navigating the healthcare system plus all I know as a fintech professional and bring it to your hospital. Right. And it was like boom, it rolled right off her tongue. So we know that. We will make sure that you have worked through those things before you're out there. It's a good question.
And we also work a lot on work-life synergy because and there's boundary setting. What are the boundaries that I need to set? How do I need to identify my own personal mindset, what's happening for me in my mind, and navigate around maybe these defined roles that I've been in for an extended period of time. We do a lot of work on just being able to spend time on you and what's happening for you, so that when you show up to all of these interviews, these network, you show
all
up
these
as your
things
best self.
We're getting shot down.
Because this is the other thing we're very strong on, is that not everyone has earned the right to hear the depths of your story and what has happened for you in your time away. No, there is a small little microcosm of people that have earned the right to hear that. And what you give in the workplace when you're on an interview, it's like a quick nod to it and then move on, because those people haven't earned the right.
That's right. And there's a lot of oversharing that happens with women in particular.
Right.
So we also are very clear on, this is something that you should share.
Yeah.
But even when you share, like when this example that I just gave, when she shared it to help explain why she was interviewing in healthcare and not at another tech company.
Exactly. It's an empowered way that you show up. Yeah.
And you're right. Like women tend to overshare, but I think finding the power in that story and weaving it in, like, that's incredible.
We teach a lesson called gratitude and apology. And the rule is you can say thank you twice at the beginning and the end of an interview, and that's it. And you can only apologize once, and it has to be for like knocking the coffee over. It can't just be, I forgot.
Setting the office on fire.
Yeah. It's like, we do way too much thank you and I'm sorry. We gotta really work on that.
I love that. Actually, I'm like writing that one down because I'm that for sure. Wow. Well, I know we're at time. This was absolutely incredible, as always. Kelley, Susan, we're so grateful to have you as our partners in all this. For everybody who tuned in, I know you guys want to know how to get in touch with Kelley and Susan. So in the follow-up email with this, you'll get a recording of this session. You'll get some awesome PDF downloads that they showed, and also some links to kind of sign up and enroll in their next course.
Yeah, we're actually doing our very first summer cohort. We normally, we both have big families. We've got a lot going on, but we decided, an unprecedented year.
Why not add to the rodeo?
That, but also in an unprecedented year, we kind of need to respond. And we know that the job market is going to be really hot in the fall. It's always hot in the fall, but now it's going to be extra hot.
Right.
So for students who have the time that want to participate in our summer cohort, it will run July 5th through September 10th. It's basically, you can learn all about it at our information session. We're doing an info session. The link will be in the email. You can join us for a webinar like this where we'll explain it. We'll have some students there to talk about their experiences. You'll learn everything you need to know about the course if you want to sign up. So if you have any questions about whether working with us further would be helpful, that would be a great thing to attend, and it will be recorded as well.
Amazing.
All right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both again. Thank you everybody for joining us, and more to come soon. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us,
Thank you.
Katie and Jen.
Yeah, thank you.